Welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. My name is Steve Chiama, and I'm the franchise owner for Action Coach in Fairfax, Virginia. And I'm your host today of the Business Spotlight podcast. And today I have the pleasure to introduce Peter Hackus, the President of Performedia, as my guest. And today we're going to talk about Peter's business, his journey into business ownership, challenges, best practices they've found, and share a peek into what it's really like to build and operate a business. So if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications when a new show like this comes down. Peter, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here today. Please, if you would, share a little bit about your background, who you are, tell us a little bit about your business.
Sure, Stephen, and thanks so much for having me on your podcast. I am a Washington, D.C. native, born at GW Hospital. Lived there as a kid and went to school in D.C. And I've lived and worked here all my life except for about 8 years I spent out in L.A. Started out at ABC News in Washington, first as a desk assistant, worked my way up to a producer type and writer. Went on from there to do some local TV content for news for a company called Potomac News Service. After that, went out to LA for 8 years to sort of seek my fortune and worked as a sort of a nomadic line and segment producer out there, and then came back here in 1995, and I've been here ever since doing business television. And I've been a full-time webcaster since 1996, which makes me a little bit of a, if not a pioneer, a veteran.
I could buy that. Awesome.
Well, I
Awesome.
got to tell you, back in 1996, there wasn't much that we could do.
No, yeah.
Real audio had just appeared, and that was all there was to try to webcast with in those days.
It's amazing the tools that have cropped up in the years since then, isn't it? It's an awful
Yeah, they've
lot.
come and gone, and I tell people it is slightly easier to do webcasting in 2025 than it was in 1996, but not all that much easier.
Still got the
But I
same
do
tools.
remember, we had two flavors of video once we started doing video, which was a year or two later once there were more tools. But we had a 21K version for 28.8 modems, and then we had a 34K version for 52K modems, which
Right.
were like the fast ones.
Yeah.
And so it's gone from there. It is
I,
slightly easier and in many ways more difficult to webcast now than it was back then.
yeah. I remember in the late 90s, I was working for a company out in Southern California, and we had offices in Europe and South Africa and Japan and Korea, and we were just dabbling in video conferencing at that particular point in time to try to coordinate meetings between our various offices. And I can recall the technology tools that we were working with in those days. It's amazing what's come down since then. Absolutely amazing.
It is. It is.
So let's talk about Perform Media a little bit, and let's give our listeners a little bit of context. How's your business structured? Solo ownership, business partners, outside investors, some of the above, all of
Sure.
the above?
So I am the sole owner of the company.
Hmm.
Started it out as an LLC,
Hmm.
and it remains actually technically an LLC today, but for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been an S Corp for tax
Hmm.
purposes.
Hmm.
So that's, proved to be beneficial to me as the owner.
Hmm.
So I'm happy that my accountant got me into that. And we don't have any investors currently, but I think, at some point in our future, we may have investors.
Okay. All right. Let's go a little bit further with that. When you think about a business, there's a
Sure.
whole bunch of different roles, different that have to be played in the business. Obviously, marketing's a role, sales is a role, doing the work at various functions is a role, bookkeeping is a role, HR is a role. If it's a very, very small company, the owner performs most of those roles. what are the roles you're performing at this particular point in time? What
Sure.
hats do you wear?
Yeah, and I sort of wear all and none.
Hmm.
We have about 20 employees right now. Most of them are overseas,
Hmm.
and certainly in the earlier days, I wore all of the hats. I
Hmm.
still wear them somewhat, you know.
Yeah, right.
For instance, I was always told that in a small business, you don't cede your check writing capability to anyone else.
Yeah.
Not until you've been at it a really long time and you feel super, super, super confident that no monkey business is going to happen.
Hmm.
And so I've always been the one who wrote the checks, and I still do
Hmm.
that today.
Hmm.
So twice a month, I get a AP report from my finance team, and then I, write the checks. Um, I'm in the field a lot.
Hmm.
I like that. As an older guy getting older, I like the fact that it makes me run around and crawl under things. And the great thing about being a webcaster, setting up equipment, tearing down equipment, if you want to and you're looking for exercise, you can get plenty of it, because it has a very sort of,
Yeah.
blue collar nature to it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of the nicer blue collar jobs out there, but still there's a certain amount of hauling things around, lifting, opening things up, setting them up, whatever. So I
Yep.
like the hands-on part of that. And I literally lose 2 or 3 pounds every time I go out on one of these events, and I go out on, probably 6 to 10 events a year,
Hmm.
and for the reason, in part, that I like the fact that it helps me lose weight. Um, what I like to do is I'm an inventor at heart, although
Hmm.
not really an inventor per se. I mean, I know enough about code to be a pain to my
Hmm.
development team.
Hmm.
But I do sometimes suggest ways of doing things that they may not have thought of, and probably because I'm not a developer.
Hmm.
And so I'm a little bit out of the box in terms
Hmm.
of how I think of things. I'm like, couldn't we just hide that and da 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 da? And they're like, oh, we thought we were going to do it with code and make it actually completely go away. But yeah, I guess we could just hide it and maybe there's less code involved. So I like inventing. That's the one thing I like the most.
Hmm.
I think there's always a danger as an inventor that you invent too much and you can't sell it. And what have
Hmm.
you spent all your resources inventing that people aren't
Hmm.
buying? So there's always that danger. And then I do most of the sales work. So
Hmm.
my sales and marketing team is based in India. They're getting used to dealing with the American market, but
Hmm.
it's a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah. Right.
And so I still do most of the selling, but they're starting to do more of it.
Hmm.
And certainly they handle all of the correspondence, all of the appointment setting, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then typically I'm still coming in to do most of the speaking and demoing, but we're trying to transition to them. We're writing scripts, we're doing that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
to get them there. We're all kind of nervous about that, because we don't really know how that's going to work out. But we know that it's got to get away from me. So we have that. And then in general, I have as a goal to work myself out of any frontline production work at all, because I'm no spring chicken. And if the company is going to go on without me wearing so many hats and being so central to the process, they just have to start taking stuff over. So we spent a portion of last year, and we're spending a lot of time this year
Yeah.
backing me out of day-to-day stuff.
Good.
Not that I can't do it, just because I shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
The company should be doing a lot of these things without my involvement.
Yeah, that's actually a perfect answer. I was going to ask that question is what roles are you working your way out of? Um, that's
Trying
an
to work my
important
way out
step.
of all of them.
Yeah,
The last one
that's
I'll give up is the check writing.
yeah, that's probably a good move. Good, 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 good.
Yeah.
Who's your typical customer? Who do you serve best?
So I haven't even really talked about what we do. Maybe
Yes,
I
well,
should take a
let's
second for that.
that can give us a
So,
place to let's talk about that.
right. So Perform Media is a hybrid and virtual services company, events company, hybrid and virtual events services company. So when physical events happen, often we're used to seeing cameras at the back of the room. That's us. That's what we
Hmm.
do.
Hmm.
And if it's streaming, we're streaming. If it's just recording, we're recording. And then typically we're providing it back to the client so they can then put it up and say, in case you missed it, here it is. And maybe
Hmm.
they're charging for it. Maybe you got it
Yep.
for free for being a member of
Hmm.
the association. And then the virtual version, there's no physical event.
Hmm.
It's just people like us right now in
Hmm.
our homes or whatever, communicating, having a meeting, having a conference,
Hmm.
showing content, having sessions, showing slides, taking questions, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So we have the technology, which we think is sort of forefront. We think kind of that's where the promise for our future is. We're doing a lot of things that other people aren't. We're also a little bit different in that we provide all of the boots on the ground
Hmm.
services as well, and that's very rare.
Hmm.
So we do in-room AV, we do capture with the cameras, the robotic
Hmm.
cameras. We do badge printing, we do lead retrieval, we bring internet with us in a box. So
Hmm.
it's actually getting internet from the cell networks and bonding it together. And we
Hmm.
use that to stream instead of the incredibly high-priced cost of the hotel handing you an Ethernet cable for your session room. That can be $4,000 or $5,000 for one day in one room. So we
Hmm.
bring it with us for a much lower cost, that kind of stuff. So that's unusual in that we are doing both of those things. Hasn't made us a household name yet, but these are differentiating things that we do.
Good, good,
And I'm
good.
not sure what the original question was because it
Who's the
wasn't about
typical,
what do you do, it was something else.
who's your typical customer and how do you,
Oh,
and
typical customer. Yeah. So
yeah.
our typical customer is either an association. So, we work for a variety of different associations, typically covering their annual conference and maybe other events that they do as well. They're sometimes nonprofits.
Hmm.
So, for instance, we work for Scouting America, we work for Goodwill International,
Hmm.
and we do several events for each of them each year. And
Hmm.
then corporate,
Hmm.
we've done a number of projects. Folks like Microsoft, Xerox, stuff like that. They have all hands meetings. They have public marketing events, things like that, and we often will help them in that regard.
Awesome, awesome.
And
Now,
with education, I guess.
is most of that focused in organizations here in the DMV area or more broadly?
Not really. We're not really focused here. We do a lot of work here because this is a big events town,
Hmm.
but we work all over the world. So, we just did an event a couple of months ago in Bogota. We're doing three more events in London this year.
Hmm.
Um, Most of our events, believe it or not, after Washington, D.C., are in San Diego for some reason, and with good reason. Everyone wants their event there because
Hmm.
almost every other event city has problems these days, whereas
Hmm.
San Diego seems to be just perfect weather and perfect
Yeah,
conditions all the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
So most of our work is, believe it or not, in San Diego, but also Las Vegas, Orlando, Chicago, the acknowledged big events towns,
Yeah,
and of course
Orlando,
DC. And DC
Orlando,
is
New
a big events
Orleans.
town.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, New Orleans a good bit, and DC, of course, is home to the plurality of associations in the country,
Hmm.
followed by Chicago. And so, that I guess to a certain extent means there's a little bit more of that work here in DC, although, often their events are not here.
Hmm.
But often they have events here. There's always, not always, but often going to be a hill day, right? Where one of the 3 days of the conference, they're up on the hill, walking around with their little folders, going to different congressmen's offices while an intern talks to them and makes them feel good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
yeah,
just
yeah,
kidding.
yeah,
Usually the congressman at least comes in and shakes everybody's hand.
yeah. Right, right.
But
Cool.
anyway,
What's one thing you wish more people knew about what you're doing?
well, I do know that even in 2025 and even after COVID, there's this impression amongst event creators and managers that capturing their event is kind of a In some cases, not even a nice to have. Some people are just like this. Don't even talk to me about it. We're not doing it. We did it during the pandemic, and that taught us how much we hated it.
Mm,
And now that we're back in person, that's where we always were, and that's where we belong, and stuff like that. And I get that.
mhm,
But if you take a look at the average association, for
mhm,
instance, which is one of our biggest, client groups, on average, less than 5% of their membership is on site for their annual conference.
mhm,
And in many cases, it's more like 1 to 2%.
mhm,
And then if you're not doing anything like capture or streaming, then you're essentially turning your back on the rest of that membership.
mhm,
And associations are feeling some competition these days from new upstart associations and, frankly, purveyors of information who get lists and things like that and start putting their own online events together and
mhm,
poaching, members of other associations to come to it and that kind of stuff. So we have found it a little bit mystifying that in 2025, and I'm sure it'll be the same thing in 2026, that people still say, we don't need it, nobody needs it, we're all in person, but they're not.
mhm,
And there's no benefit to it, whereas we know that there could be. We
mhm,
do think that if you're having an event, and at the end of the event, the only thing that the folks who attended it leave the event with is a fading memory of what
mhm,
happened there,
mhm,
you're leaving money on the table. You're leaving
mhm,
assets. You've spent so much. It's always typically in the hundreds of thousands of dollars and often in the millions to
mhm,
put these events on. And those sessions that those speakers that they spent so much time recruiting, reading their abstracts, slotting them into the schedule, making arrangements for them, uh, they're really valuable and they're an
mhm,
asset. And I
mhm,
think a lot of organizations don't realize that everything they do at meetings, by and large, I mean, a weekly company meeting, okay, maybe there's no reason to say that, although I would say for the company employees who couldn't be there, probably a good idea to have recorded and made it available. But
mhm,
certainly public facing meetings that the associations hold, and
mhm,
for their members, where only 2 or 3 or 4% are there in person, they really should be thinking about making that content available to the people who couldn't be in the room. And we're surprised at how many we encounter who are just not into it at all, period, because they
yeah,
tried it
it's
during the
interesting.
pandemic and hated it, or think that they do it occasionally or they do it
Mhm,
on an ad hoc basis, and they just feel like it's not important. And if you haven't been doing it and your membership is not calling for it, I can see why you would think it's not important. But we think it's important just the same to get the full value of your assets that you've invested a lot of time and money in, and also to have a very highly visible member or subscriber or employee benefit by making this available to the folks who can't be there in the room, or the folks who were there and couldn't attend 6 sessions at once, right? Because there's 6 tracks of breakouts. So I'm surprised that the uptake on this is so slow. And now there's a legion of associations, probably not yet 50%, or maybe around 50%, might be more than that, who really take this seriously and do it every year, and there's no question. But the other 50% are very tenuous, many dead set against it, many kind of like, well, maybe, whatever, we're not sure. And I feel like they may not be considering the loss of those assets and the lost opportunity to provide a pretty significant and highly visible service to their constituents. And we hope that changes over time, although it hasn't really that much over the last 23 years. I'm not sure it'll change, but again, digital video, are those passing fancies? Will they fade away? I think not somehow. So anyway,
You think about, to the point you just made about having six concurrent tracks going on, that's an awful lot of content lost if they haven't recorded it.
absolutely. And and most of the ones that have 20 or 30 or 40 tracks are doing recording. They're like the American
Mm-hmm,
Heart Association, American Lung
mm-hmm,
Association. Those are the folks who are serious about capture, serious about webcasting, serious about making content available to those who couldn't be there in person, and they will spend real dollars on making this happen. But for a lot of the other folks, they're not quite as far along or convinced of the value or understanding its place in their paradigm.
Yeah, interesting. What marketing have you found most effective for the people you are getting to come into this way of doing things?
I may have a disappointing answer there for you, Stephen. We've tried everything, and we are still doing pretty much everything. And what amazes me is if you were to take just a spreadsheet and go row by row and add all the different things that you are doing in marketing, we'd have 40 items probably,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Because every day we're doing this, and then once a week we're doing this thing, and once a month we're doing this. And there's stuff on Facebook, there's stuff on LinkedIn, there's stuff in other places, and there's Google Ads, and just so many different things that we're doing. And we try to tend to them like a farmer with our little hoe, and
Hmm.
making
Hmm.
sure that
Hmm.
everything's kept up to date. And that takes a lot of time.
Yeah, right.
And we're not really getting what I would consider to be a fabulous response from any of it.
Hmm. Hmm.
It comes and goes. Sometimes we'll have a week where we have a bunch of inquiries and we think, yeah, that's pretty good. Hope this keeps up. And the next week, you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Now, we're in a situation where all of our prospects pretty much have a set of vendor partners that they already work with. I'm
Hmm.
sure this is true of a lot of
Yes.
industries.
Hmm.
But that is something that we keep in mind in order for us to get a crack at any of these folks. We're going to have to displace one of their current vendors.
Hmm.
And that's one reason we offer so many of the services in our vertical.
Hmm.
The idea being that if they don't want this, they might want that, and
Hmm.
then we'll come in with that and then sell them this.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and we find, strangely, even though we're not big fans of badge printing, it is not an amazingly glamorous process. Okay, it's
Hmm.
printers and sort of pain in the butt processes, right?
Hmm.
But that's the thing that we get the most inquiries about right now,
Isn't that
and we're
interesting?
doing the kinds of things. Yeah, and we've created landing pages for every single thing that we do. We probably have 30 landing pages, right? Badge printing, lead retrieval, this and that, everything you could possibly think of. And then it's times every city that we're in. So badge printing in Phoenix, badge printing in Las Vegas, badge printing in Reno,
Hmm.
and there's all
Hmm.
of those, And, and so we certainly feel like we're spreading our footprint out in ways that we can. And, we have these people coming in. The plurality is badge printing, not something we're super interested in. But we have found that, with a few of them, and it's, I think it's trending towards more of them, we do have a chance to say, hey, we do a lot of other stuff that other people don't do. We do audio translation for live or on demand in 65 languages. No, nothing to download, install, nothing to sign into. It's just there in the media player.
Hmm.
Captions in 65 languages. Pick a caption, pick the audio, sign language, stuff like that. And so when we mention that to the folks that have called us about badge printing, then sometimes we do get interest in some of the other things that we do, and we see some hope there.
Hmm.
But I think we have benefited from having a somewhat wide palette of different things that we can do. And then, we're in a position to be surprised by what we got called for, but we're okay with it. We're happy to
Hmm.
do that as a leg, foot in the door,
Hmm.
because it's awful hard to get through these people. Otherwise, they're good, they're pat, and they're not really interested in talking to somebody
Yeah.
because they already have all their vendors for this.
Do you have um, strategic alliances with synergistic firms that can bring you in to opportunities?
We've not really figured that out so far. We've had some of
Hmm.
those in the past
Hmm.
and found that nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted us to refer business to them. We wanted them to
Mm-hmm.
refer business to us, and neither one happened. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Now, I can say that we didn't assign our best and brightest people to manage this and give them targets that they had to hit or anything like that.
Yeah.
And probably without that, that's why you don't really get too much uptake, right? If you don't have a
Yeah.
process, you don't really have results.
Okay.
And,
Yeah, right.
that's one of the things that I think we would talk about with marketing and sales. If you don't have a process, you won't get the results there, especially with marketing, right? Because you have to keep continually farming and churning and turning it over and creating the new content, and making sure,
Yeah,
you're not overpopulating one platform, that you're not underpopulating, that you stick to a schedule, that you create
right.
loyalty, all of that kind of stuff. So that is ongoing. But we've never really found any partnerships, and it may be because we do so much
Mm-hmm.
that there's not that many people we can partner with.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, we don't book hotels, we don't book rooms, we don't do catering, we don't do lodging. So, that's probably an area where we could partner with some other folks. But in a lot of things where we might partner, we end up doing it. And for instance, with AV, in-room AV, we used to partner with some other folks, and we used to get calls from them because they needed somebody to stream for them.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to handle the in-room AV, the projectors and the mics, but they needed somebody to operate the cameras and stream. But because we do in-room AV now, we have our own equipment. We don't get calls from those guys anymore. Why? Because we don't call them anymore. So
Yeah.
those can be sort of self-fulfilling, unwritten prophecies, right there.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Let's change directions a little bit.
Sure.
Why did you choose to go alone to go into business in the beginning?
I've been fortunate to work for myself pretty much all my life.
Hmm.
And that's somewhat unusual, especially I think when I started out, it was really unusual. So in my mid to late 20s, I moved to LA,
Hmm.
worked on my own. I had a fax machine and felt like I could communicate with the world. And to a certain
Hmm.
extent, I could.
Hmm.
And I had, one of those early laptops. This was back in '88.
Hmm.
Um, and, I really liked it, working for myself. So, especially in the video world, it is a world where freelancery is a lot more central to that vertical
Hmm.
than probably in some other verticals. So,
Hmm.
pretty common, pretty accepted, pretty understood when you have a single person who's arranging to create video for you.
Hmm.
And that person's probably going to hire the crew or maybe help write the script, do the post production, that kind of stuff. So it was a good field for that because the paradigm was already there, even back in
Hmm.
'88, for a one man band kind of office or company to sell that kind of stuff. And I kind of just
Hmm.
went from there. When I moved back to DC in '95, I went back to work for my old boss who had Potomac News Service and now had a real estate training company.
Hmm.
And they were harnessing direct TV, right,
Hmm.
as a way of getting the signal to the different offices. And the offices basically, they had to deal with DirecTV. The offices would install DirecTV, and it'd be there, and they would watch, and they would watch training and stuff like that. In reality, it turned out that, doing the plumbing to get everything from the roof down to your office was incredibly expensive, not like doing it at home, way more expensive than the actual service was. Sometimes three, four, five, $6,000 just to get the signal to the office for a bunch of people who were never there. The
Right,
realtors are in the field.
right.
I mean, they are in the office nowadays probably because they're not driving around so much. But back in '88, they were driving people around. I remember this one realtor that we worked with. We did, real estate training, and I was the director of programming and production for that. And this one guy said, "If you're not going to buy from me, get out of my car," and that was his motto.
Yeah.
And there was a different era. But at that time, then I thought, wow, this is terrible.
Hmm.
It takes so much commitment to hardware that's probably going to be obsolete at some point.
Hmm.
Although I don't think it really has proven to be. So I was wrong about that. But I was just beginning to see streaming. I did my first streaming on the internet in '93. I
Hmm.
created an event called the International Electric Grand Prix, which was
Mm.
on the grounds of the Long Beach Grand Prix, and it was all electric race cars.
Mm.
And we have our first video clip up in 1993. It was, a QuickTime file because that's all there was to
Hmm.
see video digitally in those days. Um, and so in '88, I was, excuse me, in '95 when I came back to DC, we were starting to see more streaming, and I was like, wow, this would work a lot better for getting this into various people's offices, homes, whatever. And so I convinced my boss to start working on thinking about streaming instead of direct TV for a lot of the different things. And we eventually sold to public television. We did their first digital video online for them. A number of real estate companies like Coldwell Banker and ERA and two or three others, and a variety of other companies. We started doing their first video online. So I really liked it, and once I left that company, worked for another one for a little while, and then in 2003 started my own, which is still here today.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. What were you hoping to get out of doing business for yourself? What were you hoping to get out of it?
Well, I hate being told what to do, especially if I don't agree with it, right?
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more of a leader type, a little bit
Hmm.
more of the idea guy, a little bit more liking to be in charge.
Hmm.
So I'm comfortable doing that, not as comfortable being the shut up and do it, employee type. And so even though I was an employee, I was usually an employee who got a lot of leeway and was allowed to do a
Hmm.
lot of things he wanted to do. But still, I wanted to have my own company. I remember my boss spun out my streaming company from his company to
Hmm.
get investors and that kind of stuff. So we called it Learning Stream.
Hmm.
And I remember he gave me, 10% of the company, which I thought was a big thing. Now, we went belly up in 2000 during the bubble,
Hmm.
as it turned out. But I realized that just by starting my own company, I'd have 100% of the ownership, not
Yeah.
10%, which was going to be real hard to see any return on ever.
Hmm.
Especially considering you get diluted as the next set of investors come in and all that kind of stuff.
Right, right.
It was nice getting a salary, but I think I was more interested eventually in the ownership,
Yeah.
and saw more upside to it. Has it really turned out to be, way more profitable to me than working for other people? No, it's probably been a little bit the other way. I probably made a little less money on an annual basis on average than I did when I was employed by other people for the few years that I did. But I'm still looking at that upside. So my eventual goal is still that multi-million-dollar nest egg that comes from selling this company
Yeah.
or something like that, I guess,
Always
eventually.
an optimist.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's based on something other than just, unbridled, unrealistic optimism.
Yeah.
Um, I would like to just say we haven't quite found the proper way to sell this yet,
Yeah, yeah. No, that's okay.
as
It's a step
opposed
along the
to,
way.
yeah, it is a step along the way.
Yeah, good. What's the future look like? Look out 5 years or 10 years. What do you see as your future?
Assuming that I'm alive is what you're saying.
Well, of
I'm
course.
kidding, of course, but yeah, assuming that I'm alive,
Yeah.
um, we have always been told we should be a $5 to $10 million company, and I still
Hmm.
believe that.
Hmm.
I think we, probably need help from folks who know
Hmm.
more, and we've had consultants along the way. And
Hmm.
I would say it doesn't always work out with consultants because we've had
Right.
a lot of them. We've had at least 5 or 6 or 7 different consultancy arrangements, typically lasting between 3 and 12 months in length over the
Hmm.
last 4 or 5 years as I tried to get somebody else to try to tell us how to get to the next level.
Hmm.
And haven't gotten there yet. So
All right.
we have a consultant right now, a fractional CFO who was a
Hmm.
CEO of many companies. So we're hopeful, getting that from him. But I still believe that we should be a $5 to $10 million company. I think if we realized our potential, we could be in the hundreds of millions of dollars in
Hmm.
valuation. But right now, we want to get up to 5 to 10. So I think that's the goal for the next, 2 or 3 or 4 years
Hmm.
anyway, is to get our revenue up so that we would be in a better position to get investment or sell the company if we wanted to.
What do you see as the main challenge for moving that forward? Is it getting more customers?
I guess that's it. Um, I'm not real sure to tell you the truth. We're doing less service this year, but still making roughly the same amount of money. So we're doing more development, more technology sort of licensing and
Hmm.
whatnot. And I don't know if that's promising or not, because I would
Hmm.
have liked to have been doing maybe more service this year and more
Right.
licensing and things like that.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't think we always know exactly what's going to cause that. But I mean, obviously, more customers is part of it. I
Hmm.
think our marketing needs to step up to a new level.
Hmm.
And our fractional CFO has been talking about, I got some people in marketing, they're really good, maybe. And, my colleagues in the company are like, yeah, we've tried that before. Agencies suck up a lot of money. And then what do you got? You've got their
Hmm.
fakakta ideas and, maybe they worked and maybe none of them did, but you're out 10 grand, 20 grand, whatever you spent on that agency for that
Hmm.
year.
Hmm.
So I'm cautious as I
Hmm.
proceed down that way, but I do think we need probably more robust marketing. We just got into Google Ads after having been out for a little while. Maybe that'll make a little bit of a difference. Um, I think that better packaging of our offerings is in order. We have such a wide array of offerings. It's very scattershot, I think,
Hmm.
in terms of talking to prospects, in
Hmm.
terms of what they see.
Hmm.
Do they see a real way forward? Do they
Hmm.
see the nugget of what,
Hmm.
the important value is here? I'm not
Hmm.
sure they do because it's like we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this, we do this. At some point, their eyes glaze over,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So we got to figure out how to package it, maybe segment it. I'm not sure, but the packaging, the segmentation, the marketing from a fundamental sort of thematic standpoint, these are going to be critical, I think, to success in the coming couple of years.
Are all those different offerings equally as profitable? If you looked at them independently, could you say each one
Yes,
is profitable as the other?
probably not, but the difficulty here is that many of them are prospective, okay?
Hmm.
And it's even worse now because we're in AI land, right?
Hmm.
So I'm offering easy language translation the second you turn on your media player,
Hmm.
65 different languages. Nobody else
Hmm.
has got that. Nobody on the planet.
Hmm.
In a month, somebody can,
Hmm.
because it changes so quickly. So
Hmm.
the one thing that we've adopted here about AI is first adopters,
Hmm.
right? Because waiting does not pay off.
Hmm.
Waiting just means you get run over by the AI wheel.
Hmm.
So we'd rather be on the forward edge, which doesn't mean that we're betting a lot of money on it or a lot of marketing campaigns on it, but
Hmm.
we're definitely working it in. And all of this language translation is AI based, right?
Hmm.
So it's a difficult multidimensional matrix to try to navigate through because we're not just trying to get new clients. We're trying to package right. We're trying to be first to market with things that may dry up as opportunities in 6 months or a year because
Hmm.
all of a sudden Zoom's doing that now and it's free. That's
Hmm.
actually been something that we've fought or dealt with a long time, because we'll do what we do, and the next thing you know, either Zoom or Teams or somebody like that offers the exact same thing for free,
Hmm.
and or pretty much the exact same thing. So we've had to make sure that, we had a bigger story. We were combining more capability. It was an end-to-end solution that was well thought out.
Hmm.
We have to kind of explain that properly. And we have to be quick to market,
Hmm.
which is not something we're super used to. I mean, we're sort of quick to market, but
Hmm.
now days and weeks really makes a difference
Yeah.
because You may have an opportunity now that you just won't have in 6 months.
Yep. Yep.
And so, and it's only, we're still at the bottom edge of the parabola.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're
Yeah.
all going to be seeing that
Yeah.
in just 2 or 3 years, the unemployment that we're going to see because of AI, nobody's prepared for that. So everything's changing a lot in ways that I don't think a lot of us really perceive. And all we're trying to do is deal with that,
Yeah.
try
Yeah.
to, stay on top of the waves.
Good. 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 If you started your business over again today, is there anything you would do differently?
I can't really imagine. Um, I think there would be other ways to start a business like mine from scratch. I'm not
Hmm.
sure I would have wanted to do any of them. I think
Okay.
starting out as a solo guy and doing a lot of stuff myself to start out was a decent way to start. Certainly, it didn't
It's a
take a
good
huge
learning
investment.
process.
Yeah, certainly you know everything that needs to be done, and you can
Hmm.
teach others
Hmm.
from a position of knowledge as opposed to, sort of guesstimating, right? Because you
Yeah.
don't really
Right.
know
Right.
everything that your company does. And I notice that as time goes on, I know a little bit less about certain things. I have to start inviting some of my engineers into some of my demos because, like, I
Right.
don't know how that thing works,
Yeah.
and I can't really run it through its paces. I need somebody
Yeah.
else to push the buttons. But I don't think I would necessarily pick some other way of doing this, like finding four other people and doing a partnership or something like that.
Huh. Okay.
I'd sort of rather die than try to have to do something like that.
Yeah. I don't blame you for thinking that way. That's good. That's good. So awesome. Before we wrap up, let's try a few rapid fire questions. Let's play a little bit. And this is
Sure,
purely off the cuff. Um, knee-jerk kind of reactions. What would you say
no
is a key to
problem.
what would you say is a key to success for you?
And I got to tell you, I'm still looking for it. I used to tell people that I went out seeking my fortune in LA, and when I came back, I said it's still fully hidden. It's hidden so well that I could not find it. Um, and so I'm seeking success, but not yet finding that, not what I call success. I've managed to pay my mortgage. I have a nice sailboat out on the bay. That's about it. I drive the company van around. So, I'm not living high off of the hog that my company has provided me, vast profits to enjoy. So I'm not as successful, certainly, as I hope to be.
Hmm.
I'm happy that, we've never missed payroll. We've always paid
Hmm.
everybody on time. We've never
Okay.
had a black mark, from any lenders or any vendors or any clients, anything like that. But that's not success. Success is, nice profits, retirement someday, God forbid
Hmm.
that I should actually
Hmm.
get there. Certainly, there's no picture of retirement right now for me. I'd love to be in a position where I could actually think that potentially retirement would be in my future, because
Hmm.
to a certain extent, I'd rather not end up, never having had a chance to retire. I think that would
Hmm.
be nice, just for a year or two,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it'd be nice to get the company in a position where it was doing a lot better. So success, not yet there for me.
Okay. If we
So
were,
unable to talk about what the key to it is.
yeah, well, I'm going to I'm going to speculate persistence has been a piece of it.
Well, you definitely do have to be persistent. I have 4 kids. I still am very close to all of them. They all live nearby. I go sailing on my boat in the Chesapeake. To a certain extent, that is success,
That is
because
success.
I have a very little life, and I've learned to enjoy it being little. So I'm happy with my little life, but it doesn't completely kill my desire for success. Having sold something for many millions of dollars or something like that, I'm holding a little position on the shelf for that someday.
Cool. Cool. If we were sitting in a coffee shop and somebody walked in talking about starting up his new business that he's going to start up tomorrow, is there a piece of advice you would suggest?
I think it's good to have customers before you start your business if you can.
Mm,
People you've talked to, people that know you because you did this for some other company and you don't have a
yep.
non-compete or whatever. I think that's
Hmm.
a good way to start.
Hmm.
To a certain extent, there was a little bit of that in my past.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's perhaps one of the number one things I would suggest
That's a
because, um, if you have a prospective customer or two or three, um, that can really make a huge difference over spending that first year looking for that first customer.
yeah, I think that's a good one.
So,
That is a good one. Is there
make
a
sure you have enough money to get by for 6 to 12 months
well, it buys
with
time.
very little
Yeah,
business.
yeah, it buys time. Good.
Yeah.
Is there a book you're reading now or have read recently that has contributed to how you run your business now?
There is not. I used to read books. I read, typically 6 or 7 a year, maybe eight.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I don't read books right now because I don't have time, really. I read
Mm.
periodicals.
Hmm.
So, I read Politico, The Times, The Post,
Hmm.
and sometimes Reuters,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm very interested in the news, an old news hound.
yeah,
It's very hard to lose that
yep,
instinct,
yep.
although incredibly stressful in the modern world. But still, that's what I read, and I don't really have time for a lot of other reading.
You've had a great journey. Even if you haven't got it all the way the place you want it, you still have had a great journey. You've done things, you've innovated
Yeah.
things, you've taken this business into places it never was. What are you most proud of that you've accomplished so far?
Well, I like the fact that I've had employees who've worked for me for a long time, which
Mm.
means that, I've essentially provided for them their livelihood.
Hmm.
My CTO, my Chief Technical Officer,
Hmm.
has been with me since 2010,
Ah,
and I'm
okay.
sort of proud of that. And one of my primary producer director types has been with us for about 8 years now. And, this is a business where people come and go and come and go all the time, just
Hmm.
all the time.
Hmm.
And I'm happy, I feel a little bit gratified that people generally have not moved on. I mean, we fired a few people, but
Yeah, well.
largely they have not quit.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's because we've created an environment for them where they were reasonably happy. And we don't do a whole lot of, like bowling trips with the group.
Right,
I
right.
mean, most of the get-togethers happen in India, believe it or not. They get together over there because we only have 4 people here in the US.
Yeah,
And then they're in the Philippines and Argentina and Peru and Pakistan
good.
and India.
Yeah.
And so they get together there. So despite the fact that we don't have some awesome social life associated with the company, um, and I don't think we're paying anybody, a king's ransom anyway. People have stayed,
Hmm.
and we've got a lot of folks, who are here from the 4 or 5 years,
Hmm.
and some a little bit longer. And I guess I'm proud of that, that
Hmm.
we gave them an environment
Hmm.
that was fulfilling enough for them to stay at. And, some of them, I mean, like my lead engineer was what they call in India a fresher when he started, right? He was a new guy,
Hmm.
had just kind of come out of training, maybe college, learning how to do HTML coding.
Hmm.
And he's now essentially genius level. He can
Mm.
do anything.
Good.
Between him and my chief technical officer, if there's something that you want to do digitally, they can do it, or it
Mm.
can't be done. And I like that. That's really nice. And if you don't create the environment that keeps people like that satisfied, they go on to
Yeah.
greener pastures or whatever, and you lose that. But we've had
Yeah.
these guys, they learn from each other. They became, I think, in many ways, one of the top engineering teams in this world of multimedia that we're in.
Hmm.
And that's gratifying.
Fantastic. Fantastic. On the flip side of that, just for fun, you had a magic wand that you could wave and fix one thing in your business today, what would it be?
We'd certainly like the sales and marketing to suddenly produce way more leads and signed service orders than we currently
Hmm.
have.
Good.
It is something that, you know, on a daily basis, we reaffirm our desire for that to happen.
Makes sense.
Um, and so, I think that's one of our biggest goals.
Cool, cool, cool. Awesome. The last question for today. What's most inspiring to you today?
Um, I think that from a business standpoint, you're talking about, not just
Hmm.
necessarily in life in general.
Hmm.
Believe it or not, it may not be of any use to anyone else, but the most inspiring thing to me is that I still really enjoy what I'm doing. And I think it probably helps to own the company
Hmm.
because I don't think necessarily everybody else that works for my company has that same feeling. But I still enjoy going to work every day. I still really
Hmm.
enjoy inventing. I still really enjoy demoing things and selling.
Yeah.
I still enjoy the work.
Hmm.
And I'm grateful for that because I might hate it, and that would make this more difficult.
Yeah.
But it's good that I get paid for doing what I love, and have some optimism about a payoff in my future.
Awesome.
And that's enough for me. Like I said,
Okay.
little life
Yeah.
perspective, and this is part of sort of a little life realized, I think.
It's really important to enjoy what you're doing and get satisfaction from doing, and that's an important commodity. And it's hard enough to get through. It's hard enough to drive a company. If you don't enjoy it, probably ought to be thinking about a different company, um, a different product, a different
Yeah,
something.
and different people have different situations. They may have inherited the business or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of different stories out there.
Hmm.
But, I think people who try to start a business doing what they love have the most to look forward to there.
Hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. Awesome. This has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed hearing this story. This has been good. I think you have had some interesting nuggets in this story. This has been really good. So thank you for sharing
Well,
all
good.
of
I'm
that.
glad.
Yeah, no, this has
My
been good.
pleasure.
So for the audience, I encourage all of you watching, save this show, come back, watch it again, because Peter has given us some good insights in different places here. So don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so that you can get notifications every time a new conversation comes along. Thank you for everyone who joined us today. And a special thank you to you, Peter, for being with us, sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Stephen. Thanks so much for having me on.